Proceeds from the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show support PBS Wisconsin programming. Your financial gift helps make this event possible. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm bringing greetings to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm so excited to be here, and so let's just give yourselves a round of applause for getting up early this morning. So thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Tamara Howard, and I've been quilting for nearly 30 years. I was inspired by my great-grandmother, Maggie Virginia Folk, and was called to follow in her footsteps. Without a sewing machine, I learned how to quilt. I started learning by hand, needle, thread, scissors, fabric. That's how I started. And then over time, I was able to acquire a sewing machine. I was talking to Deanna Springer before coming here, and she asked me to show you all my very first quilt. Want to grab that for me? I haven't done this before, but because she asked. So I didn't know much about color back then. Everything was just in a crayon box. And I didn't know anything about fabric. And so the line matched. And there we go. So I did it all by hand. Thank you. So my work today fuses the old with the new. I honor tradition while embracing innovation. And I have a very modern aesthetic that is very rooted in heritage. My background is industrial and manufacturing engineering, and then I have an MBA and worked many years in banking and finance. So accolades. I'm a member of the Modern Quilt Guild and have been the Pittsburgh chapter since 2011, its inception year, and have been a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I've earned several awards for quilt shows in modern and traditional categories. This is my third time appearing at the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show. I was here in 2022 and 2023, and then I'm back today to talk to you about African wax fabrics. And then also I have a booth, so feel free to drop by. Booth number is 129. I have a love for cotton and Black cotton farmers in particular. I had the privilege of writing 3 articles for Curated Quilts magazine, one on their why they farm, why they're still farming, rather, and then also how they farm, and then their future. My children, these are my helpers today. This is Camille and Darren, give a wave. They're both seniors, and they're both 17. They're 3 months apart. They're cousin twins. So pray for me as we get ready for senior year. So I did take them with me the 3 times we went down to the cotton farm. It's a 5th generation Black farmer, and we were there when there was no cotton in the field. We came back again when it was planted and growing beautifully, then came back again for the harvest. So they went all 3 times. Best experience ever. And really, when all of the cotton that we use in our quilts, always think about the farmers that are farming it, okay? And then this past year, I was blessed to have 2 quilts on permanent collection, one at the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. Next time you're in town, make sure you take a peek. And then also at the Heinz History Center as well. So let's talk about what we're gonna do today. It is my hope that we examine African wax batik versus African wax print, okay? It's all wax, but I do want to make a distinction between the 2. Also, I'm going to show you lots of quilts today, some mine, some are others. I just kind of brought a collection from folks from this past year. So we're going to be looking at contemporary uses of African wax in our quilts. And then we're going to talk about community and how important it is and how it's the Ghanaian way to always be in community around your textiles. So the thesis of the day, I would say, is African wax fabrics are both complicated and beautiful, layered with history, identity, and artistry, but they carry power in contemporary quilting. So I had the chance to go to Ghana in 2004, had an incredible time. I went with the So Creative Lounge. They're out of DC, and there was over 107 sewists and quilters ascending on Ghana. And so it was wonderful because the tour was geared toward textiles. And so we had a wonderful time there going to the textile markets. Of course, we did all the historical sites as well, but got to spend a lot of time talking and working with those that manufacture the textiles. So fabric isn't just material, as we kind of sometimes think of it. For the Ghanaians, it's a connection. It's a part of their life. They sew their own clothes to this day for all different types of occasions. And then, of course, they don't quilt because it's warm, but they do make blankets, okay? But textile is a part of their everyday life. And there is a difference between batik and then wax print. So let's get into that. So what is Ghana batik? So most people know what batik is. In its most general sense, it's wax resist dyeing. And so as you can see here, there's a whole group of a variety of stamps that they had available for us. All of them are hand carved. And then you dip it in a bowl of hot wax, and then you lightly and gingerly create your pattern. If you push too hard, you get a glob. If you push lightly, it doesn't always come through. But so the art is in that, right? Your skill development comes through in your technique. So then once the wax is applied, then you pick your color, and then there's a master mixer that then picks the color, the combination of the different powders to make the color. Now, I want it purple, and as you can see, when she finished dipping it, it came out blue. So then they had to lay it out in the sun. It was probably almost an hour, but it was really hot. It could have been longer. But as time went on and it oxidized, it turned to purple. It was really interesting how most of the colors started green or blue, and then they evolved into the actual color that you were looking for. And the purple did take quite a bit of time. So we made 2 yards of fabric that day, and then I was in the first group. I kind of wanted to, how you want to get through it, right? But those that went last, because there was 100 of us, they started mixing all kinds of colors and combinations. They were having a ball. So when you watch other people, you learn what not to do and then what else you can do. So this is how my fabric turned out. It was a lot of fun. So now what do I do with that? So someone said, when the fabric is beautiful, how do you use it? You don't want to cut into it and all of that. But when you think like a Ghanaian, you're in community. So I shared a lot of this fabric with others, and they added it to their own projects when they needed some purple, and that's how you want to share. And then also, I saved a piece for myself, and it's here on my little pillow. So let's talk about this little pillow pattern right here. I did a class when The Color Purple, the new movie, came out. Because Alice Walker, in a lot of her literary work, references quilts as if they're a character. And in The Color Purple, it's no different. There's the theme of this quilt from beginning to the end. And Celie, the main character in The Color Purple, named the pattern in the book, and the pattern is called Sister's Choice. So this is the pattern. So I did a hand quilting class with some friends in Pittsburgh. We gathered together. We did 3 sessions, did the entire, this is by machine, because it was an example, but they did it all by hand. And then, of course, I used my batik on the back. So keep that in mind. It's a really fun pattern, simple to use, but you can really do some fun geometries with it as well. But let's look at some other styling. We've got some big quilts. The woman that taught me how to batik, her name is Esther. We call her Auntie Esther. And so I had the privilege of going to her shop. And I couldn't decide. When you walk into a shop like that with all these batiks, how do you decide what to purchase? You can't. You just can't. And so let me tell you what this wonderful woman did, because she could see I was perplexed. I just wanted a little bit of everything. She said, I'll tell you what, I was in her shop at 1:00. I'll tell you what hotel are you at? I told her. what time are you leaving to head out on your adventure? I said, 9:30. She said, I'll see you at 9. She showed up to my hotel, 9 a.m., with 5 of these pieced. 5. From 1 to 9:30. Yes, that's how much they sew. So what she did was, and she did 5 colorways. So this is like the rust and warm. And then I have another one at home that is more cooler tones, but all very beautiful. And so when you put them together, you can see the artistry of the artist. And of course, once I took it, threw it on the long arm. Let's flip it around so you can see the back, because I wanted to get this quilted right away. And then, you get so excited and eager. Who needs to bound it? I just serged the edges, and now we use it. So now you can see the quilting on the back side. Okay. Awesome. So that's a style. And you can see, I just a single color in my batik, but some of those pieces, lots of different colors. And then there's another group out of Accra that I love as well, and they're called the Global Mamas, and a very different style. These women started the Global Mamas over 20 years ago now. There were 6 of them that needed to make a living. 3 knew how to batik, the other 3 knew how to sew. That was all they needed to do. And so what the Global Mamas primarily does is they make clothes. If you show Darren and Camille, show your outfits today. Oh. Yep. This is from the Global Mamas. So they're a clothes manufacturer. And all of their fabric is 100% certified organic cotton. They control their supply chain to keep it consistent. As a result, their fiber is very soft and good for clothes, sheeting, that sort of thing. On the back, which is also fun, they use flour sack. Isn't that awesome? They use everything, there is no waste. So these patches are leftover materials from clothes that they made. And then when I got in contact with the Global Mamas, what they now do at end of season, they send me their remnants. Okay? Awesome, thank you. So African wax, what's the difference between the batik and the print? Well, in terms of the batik, it's handmade, as you just saw. The wax resist dyeing made by artisans, layered patterns. There's a lot of uniqueness. It's one of a kind. No matter how hard you try, you would not be able to identically make that quilt again, that blanket again. And then it's community and it's cultural heritage. But when we look at the prints are industrial. It's mass-produced on cotton using roller printing. It's bold, repeating patterns. They're consistent, uniform designs, and they're extraordinarily popular in West Africa. So the question is African wax African? And I think someone alluded to that question earlier, so let's talk that through for a minute. So African wax print, we know, is industrial. It's from the Dutch. They are imitating the Indonesians. They are the master batikers. Okay? The Dutch figured they could make it faster. The Indonesians wanted no part of it. And so it landed with the Africans. So here's the question. The origin, it's not African. But because of use, it is. It's a part of the culture. It's a part of their heritage. When I was in Ghana, they wear the prints. Everyday life. Head wraps, baby slings, dresses, the whole 9. They wear it. But it did not originate with the Africans. It's through use. Okay? So that's the important distinction there when we're looking at that. With batik, handmade every time. Now the Kaufman, batiks that we buy in the store, yes, those are precise, exact, beautiful, right, manufactured batiks. But what I'm talking about are the hand ones. Those are African, and they're coming out of the community in which the tradition lives. Okay? So one of the things I did when I came back from Ghana was I wanted to continue this community experience that I was having in Pittsburgh. And I know that there were several master textile artists in Pittsburgh. I knew them by name, but didn't know them intimately. I wanted to sit at their feet and learn from them. And a lot of them are older now, and so they're no longer teaching like they used to when they were younger. And then what happens when, they move on and pass on and that craft doesn't get passed down? Like cursive, right? They kind of know cursive, but they can't read it, right? So I was able to acquire a small grant that then allowed me to hold workshops about once a quarter with a master artist. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. So the first artist that I chose to work with, his name is Sehu Njai. He's a master batik artist from the Gambia. Now, the Gambia batik is different than the Ghanaian batik. He doesn't do the traditional stamping. He's using paint brushes and whatever tools he can get his hands on. He said that his mother is who taught him how to batik, and his work is so abstract but extraordinarily beautiful. He was even on Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers always wore a sweater. But the one episode, and you can Google it, it's still out there, Mr. Roger had on a batiked vest. That was the only time. Otherwise, he always had on a sweater. So this is Sehu Njai, and he is just so marvelous, mostly abstract. And so we had a wonderful time with him. When I put the call out for his workshop, I wanted 16, he wanted 18. We ended up 21, sold out in 3 days. And that was just phenomenal. Folks were so excited to learn from him and celebrate with him. So if you look at the top corner there, those are all the batik art that we made. And I was hoping to be able to show you some of them, but they're all framed and all of that, right, on walls. And only one person actually used their textile in a quilt, and that was my nephew, Darren. So Darren, would you want to show your quilt? And this just came out of exhibition in Pittsburgh at the Kelly Strayhorn Theater. And so you can see here the batik work that he did with Sehu. It was 6 hours total session. And then he added some string piecing that he learned with African wax. Look, there's a piece of my batik right there, right? I share. As well as he's got some other batiks in there, and then your traditional cottons. So just a nice hodgepodge that turns out beautiful. And I want to show them the back. When I work with youth, it is important that they get on the long arm and learn technology. So all of the youth have to set the machine themselves, load it, pick their pattern, scale it, and then stitch it out. Thank you. So that was Darren's quilt. The next artist that I brought in, her name is Christine Bethia. She is a multidisciplinary quilter and textile artist. She can take found objects at garage sales and incorporate them into her practice. Very much about improvisation. She never follows patterns. She allows the fabric or the object to guide her. She even studied with the quilters of Gee's Bend and bridges really the heritage of storytelling and modern techniques. Outstanding woman. So we did this fun workshop called Jambalaya, and this is Christine there at the bottom. Jambalaya. And so she got us together, because I've been teaching, the traditional way of quilting. Everything lines up, your corners, your triangles, your seam allowances. She threw all that out of the window, and let's make some jambalaya. And then we cooked jambalaya and ate it. So let me show you 3 of the artists' work. This is the first one. And to make it go faster, we stretched it on the canvas so we didn't have to deal with the traditional quilting and binding. So we put it on canvas, and what they had to do once they figured out their design, they had to go back and embellish. She is big on embellishments. So this particular student had a lot of broken jewelry. What do you do with your broken jewelry? You create art. And that's how she does that. And so in there, you can see there's some African, this is batik, that's batik. You've got some Hoffman batik there. And then this was some beautiful piece of clothing that she had. So you had to use found objects and things that were given to you, not something you go and buy. And then we'll show the next one. Here's another. Again, lots of embellishments, some yo-yos. This was during, the workshop was at the time that Marquetta passed away. And if you all remember Marquetta's work here at the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show, she always had yo-yos. So I was thinking of her, and we all started making yo-yos that day, and a lot of them incorporated it into their piece. And then this last one is Christine's herself. While she was there teaching, she was also making and doing her, typical construction. She said that she was working at home and she had this rubber band in her hair and it fell out, it landed right there. She said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Let me just stitch it down." That's how an improvisational artist works. So as you can see, she's got some Ghanaian beads in there that I had given her as a gift and to thank her for doing these workshops for us. And so she incorporated in that in the piece. If you want to flip the back just so they can see. And we, talk to ourselves. Should we quilt it before we stretch it? Or can we just put it right on the canvas and quilt it? It works. Put it right on the canvas. Yep. So you put your batting, just a thin layer of batting, then you put your piece on top of it, wrap it around, do your staples, and then just quilt right through it. The needle goes down and up beautifully. Yep. Okay. And then the last piece that I will show you is mine. And I call this cotton bowl. And you'll see why. Again, I love cotton. But what's important here is this pattern, for some reason, has become called the X pattern. But it's actually called cotton bowl, coming out of the Civil War, because it looks just like a cotton bowl. So when I made this pattern, I thought, let me label it. And let's go ahead and add some cotton balls, because Christine is about embellishment and improvisation. Let's add some cotton balls to it. So that way we don't forget, it's not just X or Wakanda, it's the cotton bowl. Mm-hmm. And this is just a marvelous piece. There's really not a good use for these left over. Once the cotton comes out, they don't get used. The farmers really just discard them. Sometimes they'll make it into feed for animals, but not really. Usually the seed has more protein or more nourishment than the little, capsules. But they're hard. I thought for sure once we put a drill in it, they would crumble, but they didn't. They turned out beautiful. And then go ahead and show the back. Yep. And on the back is just an African wax. So turn around one more time, just to show you a couple things. Of course, these are all African wax prints, but I like to include a little bit of silk from time to time in my work. I just find that silk and African wax goes really well. And thank you, Camille. Let me show you, for example, and we'll talk about this in just a minute. So Kina, who's a marvelous curator of African wax prints. So if you're looking for a project and you have a color palette in mind, you don't know where to go, Kina is phenomenal. And so this is a beautiful palette just in and of itself, but for some reason, I don't know, me and silk, it just does something, doesn't it? You see that? So maybe the yellow's too warm for you. Or maybe we can go a little, or if that's still just a little too hot, let's kind of cool it down a little bit. It does give you some choices. And you can push the envelope and even pull in a brown. Okay? So I do like working with silk. This is about as much as I have. I keep small pieces, because it's expensive, right? So small pieces of silk, but it does add a little smooge to your quilt. Okay? All right, the next quilter that I work with is Kina herself. And again, there's no one that I know that can curate a palette of African wax print the way she can. Some people just have an eye for it. But what I also found, even for myself, I've been a little resistant over the years because we don't have access to enough of it to be able to really curate. It's like when you go into a fabric store, you have a lot of choices, right? So when you have choices, you're able to curate the way that you would like to. Or they're putting together the little packs for you to get you started. Well, with African wax, it's hard to find. In Pittsburgh, there's none. There's none. So unless you live in a major city, it's hard to get access to that volume. Kina has a container she's out of Los Angeles, she's from Pittsburgh. She has a container coming over every 2 months. So she really can curate beautifully, okay? So she did a nice workshop for us, and I never do other people's patterns. I don't know what that is about, don't ask. Probably because I'm an engineer, like, oh, I can make my own, right? But for whatever reason, this pattern spoke to me. So she came to do a workshop for me, and we were gonna do a table runner, and I just love this pattern so much, I had to make it into a bigger quilt. Yeah, I think you're upside down. I think you're going this way. Let go. This way, there we go. Yep, let go. There you go, awesome. Yep, okay. Yes, so it has the Adinkra symbols from Ghana. I added in the batik, the hand-dyed batik. And then, of course, in the center, I added a little bit of silk. So we're looking at raw edge. And you know, for those of you that work with Adinkras, it is difficult to hand cut those out. So what she did was she had a die made, and she can cut them on her cutter. And this is Wudin. So this is another, and I don't want to, kind of spoiler alert. The problem that I have with the African wax print industry is, and with a lot of things, China can replicate it very easily, okay? So a lot of what you're seeing in market is from China. If you actually talk to the seller, they can tell you what's not from China. So this little piece right here is not from China. It's the manufacturer's Wudin, and it's beautiful. And you can tell because it's softer. So the stiffer the product is, the cheaper the quality. So keep that in mind, okay? But it is all gorgeous and, personal choice. But here, as Americans, we do have the power to choose. So given the choice, ask. And it really does benefit the designers, because what's happening is our African fabric designers are creating the patterns, and China's replicating them and undercutting the cost, okay? So given the choice, ask, all right? Thank you. And then the other project that I did do is this one, Broken Dish. I love those old patterns from the Underground Railroad. And then, I don't know, I just thought, let's do something fun with the border in terms of the binding. I got halfway through it and wish I hadn't. But I was committed, so I saw it through. But this is called Broken Dish. Lots of half square triangles. As you can see, I've woven in some silk. And really, the key is you pick a color palette. And then in picking the color palette, then you allow that to guide you, okay? So don't be afraid of it at all. And let's go ahead and show the back. And you know who else looks beautiful with African wax? Kaffe. Yes. Beautiful. Every time, okay? So if you're ever looking for things to complement, it's probably because of his European design and, he's well-traveled, but he designs in a way that it really complements African wax print. So keep that in mind, too, when you're looking for complementary stuff. So the back is Kaffe as well as the binding. All right. And so we talked about this one already, the Adinkra. And Adinkra symbols, for those of you that don't know, they represent concepts and are used extensively in fabrics, logos, pottery, alphabets. If you look closely at some fabric, you'll see little Adinkra stamps. But they're pretty much mainstream nowadays in getting more and more use and notoriety. And so then I also work with youth. And so since I had Kina, I had 5 youth that I was working with on this project. The younger youth that are 7 and 8, as soon as they finished their quilts, they ran off and I couldn't get them back to show you. But the teens were happy to share. when youth are learning to sew, one of the great things to do is string piecing, because then everything lines up. By the time they finish their quilt, they know how to sew straight. I use muslin as a stabilizer, which makes the quilt pretty heavy. So you saw that with Darren's quilt. But just to show you a couple others, this one is Camille's, and the other is Darren. The assignment was to make a 9 patch. That was all they needed to do. Darren was an overachiever and did a little bit more. And then Layla, she took it even further with hers. It's a beautiful piece. Beautiful piece. She went a little bit further, add a little something extra with some raw edge applique of this imagery. And I forget the story explicitly about it, but this piece is tied to the Jewish art that was stolen. Yep, okay, awesome. And if you're looking closely here, you're looking at some of those, it's a bow tie shape from our quilt world. It's called bow tie in the Underground Railroad, but it's really hourglass. It's really an hourglass. But so she had this around her in the original art piece. And so Layla submitted this to the Beaver County Quilt Show and got honorable mention at 14. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was juried as an adult, not as a youth. Yep. And you want to show her the back? Cave. And they went in and they shopped for whatever they wanted. I was not there to watch, but she chose Cave. Okay. And I think, yeah, and the same with the sleeve is Cave as well. It works well. All right. And then the last artist is Ruth Bedian. She is just out of this world in terms of how she collages African wax prints. She has an affinity for masks in particular, as well as pictorial art around women. But she came and did a mask workshop for us 2 weeks ago. And so I couldn't bring anything because everyone's still frantically working on their masks. But I do have 2 of hers to share with you. Isn't that amazing? So this one is called The Ancestors Through Time and Space. It's 36 by 20. It's small. But you can see, and I hope and invite you all to come up closer when you get a chance. It's all African wax. And I watched her, I sat by her and watched her as she was teaching, and she just had a bag of fabric, and she would pull something out, and she would look for different shapes within the fabric, and then allowed the fabric to guide her. And then let's look at the next one, which is called Let the Spirits Tell the Tale. It's outstanding. And when you're up close, it's, for me, you know, if I was working this close, you can't always see the depth. But when you step back, all the faces shine. Yep. Yep. Thank you. So it's also, and lastly, privileged to work on a community quilt. For whatever reason, I've been invited to participate in 3 this year. The first 2 were on paper. And when I'm invited, like, you know, come out to this community event and can you do something quilt related, right? Well, sure, I can. And so I'll usually pick a block of some sort, bring a lot of scrap fabric, and everyone does some collaging on paper, okay? And then we lay it out and we celebrate our creation of community. But the Hill Dance Academy Theater said, that's beautiful, but we want fabric. And so I sent out a call, and I was hoping to get 54 individuals. We ended up with 72 and 80 blocks in 2 days. Everyone came out. They all had to sew their own block. Age 13 and older, I didn't want to work with any younger children. My daughter was the teacher, and Darren did all the embroidery. My husband was ushering people in. But they did all the sewing themselves. And it's very interesting when folks sit down to sew and they haven't sewn in a long time. You know, the memories come back. First, there's apprehension because of the machine. And then once they sewed the first side, the first triangle, then they started to open up. By the third, they're having a memory of sewing with grandma, auntie, home economics teacher, right? And then by the fourth, they're sad it's over. What else can I sew? And so that's what happened. It became this place of community. People were hanging out. They were relaxing. They didn't realize how much they missed sewing because they had been away from it for so long. And so let me tell you, this quilt has just gotten bigger and bigger. It's a lot of raw edge applique, piece blocks. We added some embroidery. We do want to add some photos. The first round of photos that came out just weren't vibrant enough, so we have to go back and kind of figure that out. But when it is all done, and we're almost there, we'll go ahead and throw it on the long arm. And again, we're looking at quite a few blocks. Yep. So her colors are the brand colors for the Hill Dance Academy Theater is pink, purple, green, and orange. And so I just selected 7 different African wax prints in those colorways. And so the individual, let's say, Allegra, she got to pick her 4 and then decided placement, which goes where. Some of them had a whole story. Some didn't care. But the interesting thing about it, they're making these decisions, and then when folks came back to see them all together, they realized that my individual decision really didn't impact the entire quilt because it then became a part of the community. And so that's what you really want to remember when you're working with these African wax prints. And what I love about this one in particular, when they're small like this, you can't quite tell what the pattern is doing. So don't be afraid of it. But when you come to the bigger triangles around the outside, now you have a clearer line of sight to the pattern. Dr. Aisha Morgan Lee very much loves Adinkra symbol, so I did add 4, and then we put the name on it. Camille graciously cut all these letters out on a Cricut. Took 20 minutes. I was thinking I was cutting these by hand. And then Darren took care of all the embroidery. Nice, thank you. Collaboration. So this quilt will be revealed in October at their 20th anniversary gala. So in conclusion, it is my hope that quilting with African wax fabrics invite us to honor heritage, spark creativity, and build community. I ask that you not be apprehensive in using it. Open up your stash, look what else is in it, and pull it out and use it, as well as other fabrics. When I was playing with collage, I wanted to do some practicing before Ruth came to make sure I could see. And so I did a map of Africa and just went through my stash and started pulling out different colors to kind of bring the countries to life. And in doing that, I realized I don't know much about the 54 countries of Africa, but I had a good time putting this together and then added a little flange just to kind of give it a little bit of pop. And then if you flip it on the back, this is a piece of mud cloth that I got in Ghana that Auntie Esther had dyed purple. And so my long arm did not like it, but it was fun to use. And I do want to try to figure that out because I do love the texture of mud cloth and what it does on the back, yeah. Or even incorporating it in the front. Yep. So whether handmade batik or industrial print, African wax carries stories worth sharing, and these fabrics belong in the hands of everyone who quilts. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you. And here's my information if you ever want to reach out to me. Kina, I talked about her and her curation. Cultured Expression is another company that I work with out of New Jersey. And then So Creative Lounge is out of DC. Again, that's who I went to Ghana with. So when I'm looking for something in particular, those are the first 3 places I go to. Paradise Fabrics is out of Maryland. They're wonderful as well. And then Yara, and then Ujamaa Collective is out of Pennsylvania. So definitely take a screenshot of those if you're ever looking. Kina has the most volume. Okay. I do have in my booth some Ghana batik that came in on Tuesday. So we do have a small batch of that if you want to take a look at that. But any questions that you have, please don't hold back. Okay? So I think we have time for questions. All right, all right.
What makes mudcloth different? Sorry. So what makes mudcloth different than your other cloth?
It's baked in mud. It's literal mud. Yeah. It's baked in mud.
So is it dyed?
So the
And then
dye,
baked?
so normally it's not dyed. Mudcloth typically is a brown color, a black color. You see white, but not really white, like a creamy color. That was the first time I had ever seen it dyed, which is why I bought it. I was curious.
How is wax used in the prints?
Oh, in the on the roller, which one are we talking? The industrial? Either one, not the batik, but the. So it's a part of how they roll it onto the rollers to manufacture it. So that's why it's that it's stiff. It has a stiffness to it. And there's I haven't gone around to all the booths in the show yet, but the few that I have seen, I did go and touch, and it's stiff. It's not a bad thing. It's just quality.
The wax.
Yes.
Is that a bees product? And the second thing is, does it have a role in protecting fabric from insect damage?
No. But Sehu uses beeswax. I'm not sure about. When I was in Ghana, it wasn't beeswax, and I'll tell you why. When you put beeswax out and you melt it, it attracts bees. There were no bees. With Sehu, we had a swarm. Yeah, he used beeswax, and I ordered it, so I did know that, but I didn't realize that it attracted bees. Yeah, but in Ghana, they don't use beeswax.
Is it harder to sew through the wax fabric?
No. So here's what's tough. The weave is tight. So if you're particular about your quilting stitch, then you might have to do some adjustment in the tension. If not, you're fine. So for me, because I'm particular for no reason, my long arm is threaded such that it has an extra loop in it so that the stitch comes out a little more even. But the mudcloth didn't like it. So that stitch just almost disappeared where you can't really see it. Okay? Not a big deal, but if you're putting it in a show, it is a big deal.
Hi,
Hi.
I had the privilege and honor to travel to Africa
Yes.
last fall, and I bought fabrics
Yes.
on our travels. Do you have to treat the wax anyway, or
No.
do you just cut and sew?
No, some folks like the waxy feel.
Okay,
If you wash it and put it in the dryer, it's going to lessen.
okay,
It'll become more soft, feel more like fabric.
okay,
Personal preference. I do not wash mine.
okay. Do you have to alter your stitch length?
I do not.
No, and just
Not at all.
not at all, and cotton thread, a
Yep.
50 weight?
Or poly combo. It's up to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Super, thank you.
Do the colors bleed when you wash?
So if you put anything with that's vibrant, regular reds or these, I would always put some color catchers in the. I wouldn't take a chance. The first quilt I made for my grandmother, when she passed, I have a rule: I get it back. It comes home, and so it became my daughter's quilt for daycare when she was younger. My husband threw it in the wash, turned everything pink, and then he tried to fix it, and then it took all the color out of the quilt. So whatever you do, don't take a chance. Just use color catchers, because you just don't know where it's coming from, the source of it, more than anything.
What color catchers do you use?
Any ones I can find. There's nothing in particular, but I do use a lot of them. I don't just put one in, I'll put like 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yes. Mudcloth.
Can you ask? Thanks.
So it's a loose weave. When you, I want you to, I'm gonna just hand this to you so you can feel it. When I hand it to him, if you don't mind, yeah. But this is not traditional. I want to say that. And I haven't seen any in the show yet, but like I said, I haven't gotten around to everyone. So it's a loose weave. Typically, it's a lighter color, and then they use mud that then dyes it or colors it, so to speak. But you are using mud. And I do want to do some projects with it. I was down in Kansas, And I was talking to the ladies at this one quilt fabric store, and they had a lot of mud cloth, which was unusual. And so when I asked why, because they did this whole series of projects using mud cloth. Now it is mud. It gummed up their machine, their needles, the whole nine. It was the messiest thing ever, because you just typically want to just kind of dive right in, not try to figure out how to wash it and all of that. But it is a dirty fiber. But you got to figure out how to clean it and all. And I just haven't taken the time to explore that yet. And I really want to talk to some Africans about it first. Yep, because there's got to be a way. But yeah, they said their machines were a mess. Cricut. Okay, so a Cricut is a machine that has multiple different blades that you can purchase to cut different materials. So you can cut paper, cardboard. You can even do some thin woods or do some engraving within wood. Even like little nameplates, you can engrave the nameplates with your initials, that sort of thing. So it's a tool that you can buy from Michael's or what used to be Joann's. They're not very expensive and they're not very big. They're maybe like this. And depending upon the blade, you can use it to cut fabric. So it's really good for letters. Some folks will, if they're doing triangles, half-square triangles, they'll use the Cricut to cut all of their triangles. You can only do one layer of fabric at a time, so you have to feed it, it'll cut it, and then you add the next piece, feed it, cut it, and go. It's not like a laser cutter where you can do multiple layers of fabric at one time. But it is efficient. Like for the letters, I would have died, but I was thinking that I was gonna have to cut all of those by hand. So I was thrilled when she came in, like, look! And she borrowed someone else's Cricut. I didn't have one.
Is there any other fabric that you use for batting to keep it thin?
Oh, so I don't always like a thin batting. So the cotton boll one, that has 2 layers. So definitely you want to, I'm just going to pass it around since we're now just kind of, here you go, if you want to just pass that. So that's 2 layers of poly cotton blend. This one, and I was trying something new. This one is bamboo. And it drapes beautifully. It's stitched out really well. I love the feel of it. They were out of whatever I was looking for. I think I was looking for cotton, 100% cotton. And they were out. Have you tried bamboo? No. So I tried bamboo. Yes, but man, on black, it just made fuzz central. That bamboo touched it, it was, So that was the only thing I didn't like about it when working with black. If it had been any other color, I probably wouldn't have noticed it as much. But the drape on this was really nice, and it didn't get heavy. Otherwise, I tend to use cotton, especially if I'm doing it on my domestic machine. If I'm using the long arm, typically it's a poly blend.
So how do you teach children on a long arm?
Yeah.
That scares me, but they're not afraid.
They're not afraid of anything. That's the thing. They climb up onto especially the 7 and 8-year-olds, they climb right up onto the tall chair, and they sit right in front of the computer. They went through and picked their pattern, right? Scrolling through 1,000 patterns. But they're quick decision makers. Like, they don't linger. My teens linger a little bit. But the younger ones, they're really decisive. So they pick their pattern. And then they have to load it. And I don't do any fancy loads. I load with straight pins, old school, because I like to make sure it feels right. So they have to help pin. And then when they're done with the pinning, we'll mark it. They climb up on the chair so they can reach. They have to set your boundaries. And then they'll narrow down their 3 patterns. They'll audition the 3, decide which one, scale it, hit enter. And they have to stay and watch. They can't run off. Now it's someone else's job. It's their job. Yep, and then they have to unpin it and true it up. And Darren will tell you, and then he had to bind it, and he was running behind because, he didn't manage his time very well, right? And he had a deadline for the Kelly Strayhorn Theater. Had to do an all-nighter to get that binding on. His aunt went to bed. But yes, you just do it that way. Set the expectation. But they love it because the machine's like, oh, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And they're not doing a king-size quilt, so yeah, they're small.
I received a couple of pieces of African fabric from Liberia, from our missionaries that were there.
Okay.
But I don't have any other African fabric to make a quilt with. So is it okay to?
Yes.
And how do you, I feel hopeless, helpless
So
in
I see-
figuring out what
here-
to mix
So here's what I've learned. What do you like? Like if you work with the Quilters of Gee's Bend, there's no rules. It's just, I like this. I don't know why I like it, but it feels good and I like it. And so you can pair African print with anything. Anything. Something as fancy as silk and something as simple as Robert Kaufman cotton. If you like it, everyone will love it. I love when you all come and you bring fabric. Okay, so first off, you can put this in one quilt together. Absolutely, you can. This feels like, what, 3 yards? 6 yards. Okay, so plenty. You have plenty. Okay, so a couple things. So, of course, you have your pink, so you don't necessarily need to add another pink unless you want to add a softer pink, something a little quieter, right? But you can bring out the blues very beautifully. A couple shades of blue. You can go this blue, royal blue, go a bit darker, go a little bit lighter. You can also then, with your yellow, similarly, if you like yellow, you can bring it forward a little bit more, right? But then I also see this like rusty reddish kind of burgundy. I'd play with that as a dark. So think of it as you want. These are probably more medium, so you want to get a few lights, get a few darks to complement it, and then bring in a couple other colors. Solids is playing it safe. You can do that. You can do that, right? You can't, or really small print. So like this white is not white, it's a white on white, okay? I wanted to add a little something other than just plain white, yeah, okay? But if you look at this, like these are, let's focus on the greens for a minute, okay? So we've got a lime green. Let's look at the big ones because they can see it better. Yep, so we've got a lime green, and I intentionally allowed blue to play because I knew in the pictures they would be wearing a blue t-shirt for the event. Okay, so I was being thoughtful, let the blue hang out with the green, and then I've got green with a little yellow orange, and then you got a dark green, and then I got a green with some pink, and then I got some, I don't know what this is, green with some purple, right? It's okay. It doesn't create too much chaos, just enough. Okay, but they all work together. You can do similarly with the oranges, right? If you look at the different oranges, and there's a few, but I also brought in some yellow with the orange to bring it a little bit lighter, because yellow can take over something, right? And then feel too hot. And then this orange has a little blue in it, because remember the t-shirts are blue. And then this one, I don't know the peanuts, but it had some pink in it with a little bit of black. But I like the color. You see what I mean? So allow yourself to be creative, artistic, and adventurous. Think about your 7-year-old self with your Crayola box. You went to town, and you have enough fabric to do it. This is beautiful. And if you're ever like just, sometimes puzzled by it, pull out a color wheel. Pull out a color wheel. Find your pink, because your pink is your predominant color, and then see what's next to it, what's across the aisle from it, and allow that to guide you.
And putting those two together,
I would do this all day, and if I had these, I would have put it in the quilt. So feel free to share a piece with me. I'll find a home. Thank you for sharing this.
So are those more African than these that?
Okay, so I don't know about a more African versus less African, okay? Because we don't know the origin, the true origin of the fabric, okay? Unless you're buying a Woodine or Vlisco, where you can identify the actual origin, then you can't. Here's what's important. In going to any country in Africa and in any market, the women are selling the fabric, right? They're using the fabric as well as they're selling it. That's what makes it African. not the origin itself. None of it originated in Africa. You see that? So that's what you want to just be mindful of. But given the choice, if you're in market and the auntie is in front of you, ask the question. If you were getting married today, is this what you would wear? Would you put this on your daughter for her wedding? And I tell you, back behind the curtain that's what you want, okay? And as Americans, that's what we can afford, okay? So that's what I would say. But, again, all of this is beautiful. And they have to live. They have to live. The fabric that's behind the curtain is the fabric they can't afford to wear every day. Thank you. These are beautiful.
Proceeds from the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show support PBS Wisconsin programming. Your financial gift helps make this event possible. Thank you.